How's it going, everybody? Back to another episode of Factorio. If you guys have been enjoying the series so far, if you guys have, you guys know to do, smash the like button if you haven't done so already. And with that, let's get into the episode. So, in the last episode, we were building out our platform, kind of getting everything set up and situated, and then we were starting to progress towards getting the dark blue science. In this episode, my goal is to hopefully actually get dark blue science to be produced. And so right now I'm finishing building out kind of this bottom section of platform, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get the rocket stuff going here momentarily. Probably in between episodes. Also, slight update. You probably noticed there was not an episode last week. I got really busy with some things, helping out my sister and just doing some other work-related stuff and things. So I didn't end up having really any time to play Factorio, and I decided instead of doing an episode where it would have literally just been me standing mostly while I waited for robots and stuff to do things, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna just wait a week. We'll come back. We'll kind of hit it a little bit different, and we should be good. But anyway, so yeah, we're here now. So we're getting this all set up, so we have 10 of these, and then let me find where my, not spreadsheet, but where the thing for this is. Is this not gonna, let's see if I can expand that window. Right now I'm moving some things around on my other monitor so that I can see what number of these I need are. So we're going to need ice and lithium plate, right? And then we also are going to need this to come out. And then we're going to need something like this, all the way down, like that. Okay. But we need this to not only go here, we also need it to go up. So because of that, we're going to do this. And then so we're going to have this run the full length. Then we need to strategically figure out the distance. Okay. So then it's going to look something like that. Because it needs to go like this. This. Right. So like that. So then we need to figure out the exact where all these things are going to go, but notice we also are going to need to figure out where power in this is going to fit. Well, if we do something like that, alright, we can then do something like this, and then we do here and here, and then we put in these power poles. It's going to be in the middle, so it is going to just kind of be offset. Which should be fully powered, and then we can do input output here on the left hand side. So what we can do is we can do passive provider, and then do we have all the stuff here, or is that all on the, I think it's gonna be on Thor's hammer. So we can do passive provider in, and then requester there. I don't think we have any requesters, but we'll see. And let's up this to 600 solid fuel, and then 600 of that. Okay. The other thing is I need to rework some of this section of the base, because this was from earlier when we were just running some older equipment. And then we can put that down, which should get this going, which, yeah, these are all going to charge up, and that's going to give us platform again. Awesome. How are we doing? We're doing okay. This does need to connect to this system, because this is going to produce a good chunk. The problem is I need to set it up so that this top stuff only consumes a certain bit of it, and then the rest of it gets prioritized down here. But that will be a me problem to build a balancer. I know in modded I can do valves and stuff, like check valves. In this, you can kind of get away with it by using pumps and then fluid conditions. So that's probably what I'll do, is I'll probably have it set so that we stockpile it for this, and then once it reaches a certain threshold, it then allows the fluid to travel in the other direction. But then this way it allows these to fill up so we can produce the solid fuel, and the solid fuel is what we use to burn here, help supplement the reactor here. One of the things is I'm slowly getting this built so we can have enough power for everything, because once everything's actually down and operating, we are going to be needing a considerable amount of things. So I'm going to just go through and just make sure that everything here for these 10 look good. And we're going to have more than 10, so it's not by any means done, because we have, and I think we need 33.4 for 1,000 per minute with everything set up the way I'm gonna have it set up. Then we can change these over to underground. This just lets us be able to have that ability of power poles where we need them. Also, some slight updates. So I've been playing the new Battlefield, right? Bit of a skeptic on the new Battlefield. Does have some growing pains, in my opinion. But hopefully those growing pains get ironed out. So that's also where some of my time has been going, as a Battlefield fan of sorts. Definitely let me know what you guys think about the new Battlefield, if you want to see any content for that created. Because mainly it's me getting very mad while I play, and then relieving stress in air quotes. It works. Kind of. Alright, let's see. Did that ship get here? Yes. And then, I think I mentioned it last episode, one of the things I want to work on for after we get to the Shattered Planet and finish off this series is to be converting this world / playthrough into a mega base series, where I kind of learn more about how to do a mega base to begin with, as well as let's look at it on a grand scale of how far can we push Factorio, but also what does it really take to get certain things ironed out, right? So what are certain logistics that we have to factor in? Because like right now, we kind of are just doing things at a leisurely pace. And we don't really have anything set in stone where we're really setting up things such as like, okay, we have a ship going to and from these planets every so often. Like, for instance, with our science ships, they just carry 10,000 science back and forth between Novice and Flagora. And then when Novice needs more science, it drops it off, right? We're not actively consuming 10,000 science per minute or whatever it is. We just are producing 1,000 science per minute on every planet. Mostly. I don't think we've updated Novice to actually hit that goal, but we're mostly doing that to a degree. But we're not really setting it up so that we can receive the 1,000 science per minute on Novice to actively use it at 1,000 science per minute. And because of that, we're really hitting like 500 maybe per minute. Realistically, I think we're limited by what we have on Novice. So because of that, we have to kind of look at, well, what if we actually built it so that it properly used 1,000 science per minute, right? That's going to be kind of that first rework. The second one is going to be, we're going to look at wanting to have maybe 10,000 science per minute. And so what would the scale look like that? And so part of that is why we have 100 silos here, is how do we efficiently do that, right? Well, for starters, we want to make sure that we have one requester chest for each input, so that way we're not bottlenecked by inserters, right? We also want to make sure we're running productivity modules, and we also want to make sure we're running speed modules, so that way we're getting the speed, we're getting the productivity, we're making it a little bit more efficient. But then also we want to make sure that we are efficiently using certain things. So like right now, a lot of our bases have devolved into robots, which is fine, but notice robots A use a lot of power. Robots B, well, they're not a problem for FPS and UPS, at least at the scale I've been using them. They may be a problem when you start to get into like the millions of robots and things. But there are most certainly issues at the lower level when it comes to needing other items to be contributed to them. So for instance, if we have one roboport, notice all the robots are going to go to this one roboport. This one roboport only has 4 charging points, and while it charges faster, it's not going to really sustain this many robots. So, knowing that, then you run into the situation where it's like, okay, well, let's add 2 roboports, or let's add 4 roboports, or let's add a line of roboports. Kind of like what I did over here. But that only gets you so far if it's not efficiently managed, because if you have one large network, kind of like how I'm doing, I'm inefficiently doing the robot system. Because I'm just throwing a bunch of roboports down and letting the robots manage it and calling it good, when in reality that's not really how you're supposed to do it, nor is that a good use of them, because then you end up with a very inefficient setup where your robots are honestly sitting idle more often than not because they have to sit here and charge. So even though you may have enough robots, if they're not able to effectively charge properly, and especially if they have to go from one corner of your base to the other corner of the base to another corner back and forth, you're inefficiently using them. So that's where belts can shine, because you don't run into that problem. So for instance, if we look on Novice, we're not using robots here for the main means of production. We're using belts for the main means of production. Sure, we have robots, like there's a robot network, they can build things, they can move things, but for the vast majority of the base, belts are moving it. With the sole exception of like here with the with the rocket silos, the robots are moving the products to and from the rockets and to wherever they're stored in the base. But even that's a little bit inefficient, because take for instance our production mall of infrastructure. Well, the robots have to come over here, grab it, and then they have to travel all the way back over here and drop it off. Now, if at any point they run out of charge, or if the robot tasked with that job is coming from, I don't know, say over here on the front line, well, if for some reason the logistics robot that is over here on the front line is tasked with taking an inserter from our chest and putting it in our rocket silo, it has to come from way over here. And I can almost guarantee you it's not going to make it to these chests before it runs out of charge. So it's probably going to get to here, have to recharge, continue, recharge, continue, recharge. So you're going to run into some inefficiencies. What would be more efficient is to only have a roboport network isolated between our rocket silos in whatever chests have the infrastructure. So it may be more beneficial to limit your network size to make your robots function. Now, that is one thing I kind of did here on Flagora a while ago, is if we look here at the networks I've established, I have one network up here, I have a secondary network down here. Now, the reason they are separate is because notice these orange zones are not connected. So anybody who's newer to playing Factorio, if you isolate your roboport networks like this, that means all of these robots who are up here will not traverse into this network. And because of that, what I do is I'm having these robots only worry about moving the resources from these chests that are up here for storage, for production, to these chests, where they're then moved via belt down into this other network. Now, this isn't the most efficient way of doing it. This is just how I did it at the time, and it's been working for the scale that I'm playing at. Now, it may not work in a much larger scale, and it may not work for you, depending on how your islands are as well as how your setup is. But essentially the idea is I'm limiting the runs that our robots have to do. And notice here on Flagora, we don't have thousands of robots sitting at these roboports, or thousands of robots inefficiently moving. Sure, the scale isn't there, but even just the couple hundred robots we do have currently active in this network, it looks like only about 100 robots currently active in this network, they're able to effectively move from one chest to this chest and back and forth. That's all they have to do with a nice charging point here. And the same idea is down here. We have tons of roboports right next to the rockets, because the rockets, if for some reason we need any of these items out in space, they don't have to move very far. They can move from the chest, charge if they need to, rocket, back and forth. And if for some very oddball reason they do need to deposit something in storage chest, we do have them, but they're over here, which is very seldom. And we even have our shopping mall, which is very close by. So this is an instance where on Flagora, where robots are kind of highlighting what I was mentioning of, you kind of want your infrastructure mall as well as any of your resources fairly close in storage to where your rocket silos are, especially in this DLC. That may not have been necessarily the choice or the decision processes made in 1.0, but definitely in 2.0, I would say having your stuff stored close by to your rockets with charging access so that your robots are not sitting idly by. Now, this factory isn't functioning at 100%. I would say it's maybe 10% or even less. So it's not really fully turned on, but it is still there in proof of concept. Whereas Novice, being the first planet we were on, it is starting to break down as some of the trains have started running out of fuel and some of the ore patches have kind of started shutting down, but it's still the idea that we're kind of looking at. Now, on Aquilo here, we have, it looks like, run out of heat. No, we have heat. So it's water that's the problem. Because these guys don't have any ice. Okay, let's go ahead and grab a ton of ice. So let's throw that in there. And then we're just going to run back and forth. So the current setup that I have for this is these guys are being powered by all of these solar panels. Right now it's at night. Solar panels on Aquilo have a minus 99% efficiency, so they're basically useless. You definitely want to make sure you have proper power set up here, so that way you don't run into these weird brownouts. Part of this is just because I haven't fully stabilized our power system yet. But what I've done is I have these on both networks. So these are being powered by the solar panels exclusively, but they're also on the main network. So once power is established in the morning, once we start getting some power generated here, these will get power. They'll very slowly produce water. And yes, the speed modules do increase their power consumption so that it's not the most efficient. But what it does is this allows us to produce some water. The water goes into this network. The water then turns to steam. The steam goes to the boilers. We get energy. Well, that energy, even for a split second, gets these to go at full bore. Then they're able to produce a lot more water, and then it starts to snowball, and then eventually we get stabilized. Now, one of the big issues here, part of it is because I don't have the reactors set up so that they're fully automatic yet in requesting their uranium or anything else. They're very much still in their infancy of they just pull from here, take it out, put it in, call it good. So I have to manually feed that. But we have the heating towers, and the heating towers have been kind of our supplement, because what we can do is we can take solid fuel, throw it in here, and while it does burn through it very, very quickly, it at least gives us an option for additional power. Now, to be fair, the rocket fuel actually burns at a much, much lower rate. So if we look here, we actually have a much higher... Interesting. You have a much better fuel ratio. We have 100 versus 12, which is partially why it's probably burning a little bit slower. But either way, it's still producing heat. That heat goes into the pipe, and that heat has to disperse between everything. I like the unique mechanics, but it is a little bit challenging because you need the heat for these boilers. At least until we can get, ideally, we can get, where is it? Quantum processors to then get the fusion reactors, which we'll be taking a look at. And then we'll queue up legendary quality. See that up on the end. So that's kind of where we're at with things. I'm going to go ahead and I think we're going to put a cut in here. I'm going to go ahead and try to see if we can restore power to Aquilo, as well as hopefully get all this built out, and then ideally start getting some blue science, so that way next week we will have some fusion reactors to start playing around with, as well as legendary quality, and we'll start looking at that, and then start making our preparations for a ship to be able to get us to the Shattered Planet. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Hope you guys learned something. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those down below. With that, I'll see you guys all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Peace out.